Hello, sisters. For the past month, we've been starting our Wake Up Wednesday episodes with a very different essence and a different question. Rather than focusing on our normal routine with a fancy film crew and our resources of sharing coaching tools and techniques and stage skills, I've just been sitting here behind my computer and starting with the question, what is real right now in my life? And today I'm feeling really tender, one, as I ease in today's topic, and two, as this completes a really special time that we've had, but also marks the beginning of a new devotion that I have to you as a part of my tribe to continue this moving forward. And I'm going to share how I'm going to do that at the end of today's raw, vulnerable share. So if you haven't watched the previous 3 parts of this 4-part series, take a look at those, and it'll catch you up on what we've been dropping into together. And today when I ask that question, what is real in my life right now? I have been immersed in the writing process for the Captivate performance that's coming up. This is something that I do every year. And the intention behind this show and performance was that I have the space to get real about telling whatever stories are true in my life, because I strongly believe in telling our story and in the healing power that has for ourselves and for our clients and our tribe, our friends, our colleagues, even our mentors. And this performance every year is a way for me to do that in the way that I love, which is to sing and dance and honor that other side of my personality and passion, which is being on stage and performing. And so as I've been immersed in this writing process, I have been thinking about what's real for me right now and telling this story of my pregnancy. And also, as I'm just asking that question today, thinking about stories, I'm thinking about a personal trigger that's happening in my life right now when it comes to my family. And I have been thinking about how we keep secrets. We keep secrets about ourselves, what we're really going through, what we're really thinking, how we're really handling things. And I'm noticing that we keep secrets for other people. We keep secrets in relationships about how other people show up and talk to us behind the scenes. This I notice more personally for me with really, really close friends, or with my parents, particularly my mother and father. And what I mean by that is that we have a way where we hold space for people to show up or treat us in a way that maybe the rest of the world doesn't get to see, or that even those people won't admit to themselves, but they harness that way of acting within our relationship. And this is where I think it gets really hard for us to tell our story when our stories involve other people, especially if you're an empath like me. And today I want to talk about how we can tell our stories when they involve other people, how we can handle our empathic heart and the way that we feel into other people's needs and emotions that may keep us from honoring our own truth or healing in a way that really honors our evolution and what we need to survive and thrive and become the most expanded version of ourselves. And I want to talk about really the power of truth. What happens when we are really telling the truth about ourselves and about the way other people show up with us and how we expect and what we actually have the capacity to hold space for, so that some of those damaging relationships can change, and so that you don't become a throwing block for people to just exist in their own stories or secrets with you playing into them. And I want to thank you, because these videos have been a real expression of what being truthful does for ourselves and for others, as I've been able to receive more support by showing up authentically with what's real for me. And you've been really honest by engaging more on the blog and in the comment section in our sisterhood there and in the Facebook group about what's coming up for you. So you can see that by me sharing my truth, it's an invitation for you to do that. And I want you to get that, because I know that most of you are stepping into your role of a leader. So understanding that by you embracing and understanding and practicing what your truth is, you're then encouraging that ripple effect to broaden with your tribes and your followers and your truest fans. And The other power of truth that we can tell is within our family stories and within our relationships, so that then we can release those stories and can actually be treated and respected and engage in relationships in life in a way that's empowering, rather than this suffering obligation of love that seems to happen. And I will explain what that is in a moment too. So the core lesson behind today that I want to drop into, to remind myself of, not to speak from trigger, but to actually learn what is the way that we can practice being intentional about the stories that we tell, and releasing our truth in a way that has an intention behind it, so that we're not just speaking out of trigger or from our pain bodies, but that we're actually speaking and telling our stories from an intention that will serve us and others. And when I say pain body, what I'm talking about is most of our stories that we're going to tell, when they come, when we're talking about our human life experience, when we're talking about our story growing up, what we've went through to get to who we are today, the challenges that we faced, when we just talk about who we are, we're actually talking about our ego. And our ego is this body that we're in. It is this brain that stores all the memories that we've had. And that is our pain body. That is the part of us that exists in this human experience, that's having a human experience. And those stories are real. They've happened. But this tricky part is that they are not the truth. They are not the core truth. Because oftentimes when we experience those stories, we were a different person. We weren't as resourced as we are now. We made decisions and reflections that are not fully always accurate. And more importantly, there's more truth to our life and our existence than this body. There is a soul, essence that we all have. There is a bigger picture. There is a full universe that exists just out of this container that seems to consume us. So our stories are real, but they're not the truth. And our stories begin often before we're born. They begin with our family and our ancestor experience. And this can be really painful for most of us who are stepping into the role of thought leadership. We have traumatic stories, or we have really deep things that have come from our ancestral system, from our relationship to our parents, from our very first moments breathing as children. And we keep those stories, and they already have begun to shape us even before we were born. And then what happens is, as empaths, we really take on other people's feelings. So we feel what other people feel. We can see into their pain bodies, and therefore we reflect without regard for ourselves. We immediately have an understanding of someone else, even when that understanding isn't protecting our nature or what we need. And so we fall into these suffering obligations of love, which is something that I've studied under Hemingway. This is family constellations therapy, where we then take on the stories of our parents. And the stories of the 3 rules of Hellinger, I actually have them here, I was looking at them before, are that in our families, the first one is that no one in this family will have a better experience of life than I have had or am having. So immediately when we're born, we fall into that rule. Whatever experience our mother or father is having, we immediately commit as their children to not have a better life experience than they're having. Or we go into the second rule, that no one in this family will have a better experience of themselves than I have of myself. So whatever experience our mother and father had of themselves, there's a rule that we don't have a better experience of ourselves than they had. And the third is that no one in this family will have a better experience of me than I have of me. Meaning that we will take on what we're feeling about ourselves, and no one in the world will be able to have a better experience, or no one in our family will be able to experience us outside of how we experience ourselves. And we use this suffering obligation to belong to our family. And so we use this moral code of what makes us feel guilt or shame, and how we treat them or how we move away from them. And right away, our stories of life become so wrapped up into this family experience, and often we don't talk about what those rules really look like, and how they're making us feel, or who they are making us become, or how they're making us show up in the world. Until we start to tell our story really honestly and authentically, and we start to find the courage to use a new moral compass, which is taking 100% responsibility for who we are and how we show up in the world and what we need to do that and become the best version of ourselves. And we start to tell this story out loud, and we start to hear how absurd it is, and we start to break free of it and see that it's just a story. We start to find our soul essence. Then we start to find a place where we can actually become a leader and lead from. So these stories that we tell that are from our pain body, that are real but not true, when we tell them, we can start to actually see that. We can start to see how our egos attach to these stories, but how they aren't the truth and how they don't belong to us. And when we do this over and over in a very powerful way, and we become familiar with our stories, they start to release their hold on us, and we start to find our soul essence. We start to find who we really uniquely are, and we start to become this magnetic inspiration for other people to naturally be around us and start to sense their own soul essence. And because these stories begin before we're born, we really have to find a way to talk about them without harming our family. And this is where being an empath becomes really difficult. And I'll share a little bit of a release with you around this today. And I'm trying not to speak too much about it, because another thing about our stories is I think it's better that we don't speak when we're in trigger, but we speak once we've come out of it. And I'm a bit in a trigger, but because these videos are real and raw, I want to share that with you. So when we're going through big identity changes, which has been the whole theme of this last 4 weeks and what we really started talking about, you know, our family becomes more integrated in this because it's a time when we're shifting our identities, and the greatest place that they were formed is when we were younger. And so I'm going through this identity change of birthing a baby, and so naturally my mother and father are wanting to come and be more involved in my life, as this is their first granddaughter, this new story of this being that's coming in with a story that lives before her, just as we're talking about. And, you know, it's really triggering for me because I can see from their heart, like, how they desire to be a part of her life. But the truth is that the choices that they have made are affecting their ability to do that. And what happens in our relationship is there's a lot of martyrism and victimhood in the personalities of both my mother and father. And that victimhood gets put often on me to handle for them, to figure out, or to look past that the life choices that they make are the things that affect them from not being able to have the experience that they want. And what happens is, as empaths, we can feel into this, right? Because I can feel into my mother's desire to wish to be a great grandmother. And it pains me to see that that might not be possible for her. And I can see the same with my father, that he wants to be able to spend time with this grandbaby, but that his choices in life keep him from being able to have that reality, to be able to afford things, to come to see her, to be able to take ownership of himself and his own issues in order to make the space. And when I feel into the heart space of that, it's easy as an empath to want to take on their pain, or to take on ownership of these problems and do something to support your family members when they're suffering, or when the choices that they've made in their life are keeping them in drama circles. And oftentimes when there's a victim or martyr mentality, they want to blame that on you. They want to blame you for the reason things aren't going right. Or it can be, and what we do when we're not strong in our boundaries, or when we're living in their story, is we don't set up letting them take care of their own systems. And what's really important is that sometimes we get in these very triggering conversations where hurtful things are said, expectations are made, and not saying them out loud or sharing the story gets confusing, and then these relationships become a space where you just hold on to these secrets for other people. And it becomes really painful for you because deep down you know that this does not belong to you. So there's a way that we can start to form a new boundary with our family members, with the people in our lives that have formed these earlier stories with us. And we can say, you know, if you are going to act this way in our relationship, I'm going to be open about it. I will share it with my friends. I will share it with my tribe. I will talk about how this affects me. And that's the kind of way that you can get permission when you're thinking about, can I tell a story that involves someone else? Or sometimes it's even someone that's passed. And so you may have to have this conversation with their spirit and say, I need this for me. I need to be able to release this story and this feeling into what your soul has chosen as your life experience and taking it on as my own. And this is the way that you give yourself permission to actually be more honest and take 100% responsibility using a new moral compass of not guilt or shame for what others may feel about what you have to say, but taking ownership about what you need to clear this story in your life and to set the boundaries that you need so that you can own the way that you show up and so that you can own the choices that you make without having obligation to own other people's choices that affect their life experience. And this is what we were talking about in the first video of this series when I talked about putting up that big fucking fence and being really discerning about who is able to come behind that fence as you're stepping into a role of leadership, as you are starting to expand in your life and go for really big goals and dreams. There's no room to be surrounded with diminishing thoughts or stories of who you are that don't serve you. And so this is why I write this performance every year, the Captivate Retreat. It's a way that I'm able to get on stage to talk about these stories and share them. And last year I wrote a one-woman show. It was the first time I really ever shared the truth about my family, who they were before I was born, what their whole system was like before I came into the world, my mother and father, and then my story growing up and the changes and challenges I went through with drug-addicted parents. And for the first time ever, for those of you who were not live, I am releasing the audio from this show in today's blog. So you're going to have access to the full show that was written and performed. And the craziest part is that I didn't know my dad was going to come. I thought I was going to be able to share this story without having to say it to him. But the universe had different plans and he showed up. So live in the show, you're going to hear how I handled telling my most honest version of my story that included things that weren't easy for my dad to hear me reveal about my responsibility and a way of taking ownership of how I felt about his actions, how they affected me, live on the stage, and with him even responding out loud from the audience to some of those. So if you want an example of how you can step out of your fear and share your story, then you can listen to that full audio below. It includes songs, monologues, and a live audience, and the only people who've seen it are I think we had about 50 people that were live in that theater, and I'm releasing the whole audio to you. And I'm also performing again this year, and I hope that you will really consider showing up live so that you can get a feeling for how women do this, because I'm not doing it alone this year. I've invited 7 other women to take the stage in an artistic performance to tell their stories, to really be open and vulnerable and raw, not only with revealing their story through some kind of art piece and performance, but through their words and their truth. And in this way, we are hoping to inspire all of you who have a story to be told or something that you need to release that you may have never shared before in a way that has intention and allows you to step up in the role of a leader rather than sharing from a place of trigger or from a place of pain or from a place of just needing recognition or even from a place of just being fear of judged, but knowing that you have to reveal this edge in you. And so listening to that audio from last year's performance or coming live to this year, I know will be a way for you to understand and to feel into what story it is that exists in you that needs to be released so that you can find that truth of your soul essence too. And every time I commit to doing this, I find that I am releasing more and more places in my pain body that exist as blocks or limitations in my persona in the world, and allow me to bring my soul essence to be more present in my daily life and in the way that I lead and in the way that I live. And the other way that I'm going to be doing that continually moving forward is in these videos. So I've made the space to have our normal promo schedule where I'll still be teaching you high-level coaching tools and techniques on every Wednesday and tips and tools to take the stage really confidently. But I'm also going to make space in our schedule for those live Q&As where you can join and ask me a question about your coaching business or thought leadership and stepping into that. And I'll answer that live on Google Plus and then share that interview with my tribe. I'll still be introducing you to the celebrity thought leaders, but I will also be doing videos like this, hopefully at least once a month, if not every other month in our schedule. I'll be taking space to just get real and raw with you about what's real right now. And the next time we have that scheduled is September 30th and then October 28th, which will be really exciting. Those videos will be shot just like this, real and raw. And October 28th will be pretty cool because my little girl will be born. And I plan to introduce her to you in that video if life allows. And so I want to close this today by inviting you to really consider coming to the Captivate Performance Live this year or next year, letting it be part of your annual ritual as it is mine, to devote ourselves to living out loud, to releasing these suffering obligations of love, and learning to tell our stories with intention and leadership. And that is the tip for today. If you feel that you're ready to share your story, what you want to think about is, what is the intention for yourself? Why are you doing this? So for me, last year, it was about revealing my edges. It was about setting a new relationship with my family and boundaries for myself around how I relate to them and how I exist in this world outside of being that secret holder for the way that they show up and holding on to their mistakes and their choices as my own. And this year, it's about really embracing this identity change that I'm going through so that I can step into the role of being a mother and a business owner and embracing this new part of myself while I'm going to be nurturing a new soul and life relationship into this world. So set an intention for yourself before you share your story. What is it that you're doing this for yourself? And make sure that you're proud and that it feels good and spacious and not from a place of trigger, the reason that you're sharing your story. And then second, you want to think about, what is your intention for sharing your story with others? What do you intend for them to experience from it? This is the way that you initiate leadership. And I'll share with you that after the audio you're going to listen to from last year's performance, what was so beautiful is the intention that I set is that other people would feel into their stories and they would find the courage to share them. And after the show, no one came up to me with judgments or reflections on my story, even though some of the things were really wild and traumatic that I shared. That's not what people took away and remembered. What they came up to me and remembered and felt was this sense of release and openness to have conversations with their family, to tell their story, to release their blocks. They were in tears and excitement for the courage that they were feeling to finally know that it was okay to talk about this. So think about that intention that you have if you're going to share your story, and know that when you're intentional for yourself and for the people that you're sharing with, this is the way that you can share your stories in a way that will be empowering and allow you to feel like a leader. Thank you for holding the space for me to be so raw and vulnerable with this 4-part series. We'll be back next week with one of our celebrity mentors I'll be introducing you to. Don't miss that episode. Be on the lookout for those future raw videos like this. And continue, if you will, to be giving yourself the permission to live out loud, and use this space every Wake Up Wednesday for us to wake up together and to meet in the comment section. I'm always there. It's a space to really connect with me. I sit down and really feel into your essence and energy and respond to your questions and your shares. And it's the way that I feel supported by you. So if you want to show me love, it's also where I feel it most, when you guys take the time out of your busy, beautiful lives to just share your heart with me. So I hope you'll continue to be devoted to this space every Wednesday. And I really hope to squeeze you and see you live at the Captivate Performance this year and every year, so that we can share in this story together, so that we can walk this path together, so that we can live out loud together. Thank you, sisters, for watching, for being here, and I will see you in our next week's Wake Up Wednesday episode. I love you. Bye.